Hello and welcome to the 5-Minute Roundup, where I bring you the latest news, waivers and streaming advice, all in less than the time it takes the state of Nevada to count a single vote. Welcome back, Christian McCaffrey, and welcome back to the injury report. His status for Week 10 has been described as very much in doubt. David Montgomery and David Johnson both left their games due to concussion. Their outlook isn't yet known, but their backups will be in the waivers section. Kalen Ballage, a name you probably thought had disappeared into irrelevance. Well, after Justin Jackson went down with injury, Ballage, in his first game as a Charger, led the backfield with a performance that was top 4 at the position on Sunday. Wayne Gallman has now had 3 decent fantasy weeks in a row since Devonta Freeman was sidelined with injury. Freeman seemed to be ready to come back 2 weeks ago, but he's still not back, and at this point you have to assume the Giants will hold him out through their Week 11 bye. Anyone that drafted the wrong D. Johnson for Houston, your time has come. Duke Johnson took over duties from David Johnson, and while this might not be the most exciting pickup of all time, the volume should be enough to make him an interesting add next week if David misses. The backup for David Montgomery is a lot less clear, with Ryan Nall seeing the most work of the remaining running back crew. But the more interesting add is actually wide receiver Cordarrelle Patterson, who usually takes a couple of carries a game even with a healthy running back core. He's much more of a known commodity to the team and therefore should see quite a lot of work. Curtis Samuel has an incredible 56 fantasy points over his last 3 games. I don't think there's anything more to say here. He needs to be owned and started until proven otherwise. The Broncos passing game has looked surprisingly good in the last 2 weeks, partly due to the emergence of Jerry Jeudy, who should already be owned, and KJ Hamler. Okay, they've had easy games, but that looks set to continue at least this week with a trip to Las Vegas on the cards. Michael Pittman was a name mentioned earlier this year who unfortunately met injury. He's a second-round rookie on a team with no clear number 1 receiver. He seems to be being eased back into the offense with 1 target in Week 8, rising up to 7 in Week 9 against Baltimore. The games only get easier from here for the Colts, so grab Pittman before he breaks out. I mentioned him last week, but if Jacoby Myers is available on your league, go pick him up. He just had a huge game. Rookie Irv Smith has had his own breakout of sorts. He's been over 8 points in 3 of his last 4 games, which at tight end definitely puts him into starter consideration. This week was the best of the bunch, slightly inflated of course by 2 touchdowns, but against a stingy tight end defense. This week he gets the Bears, who have been beaten at the position all year, conceding the 7th most fantasy points to tight ends over the last 4 weeks. Outside of Irv, it's pretty stingy at the position this week, but check if Jordan Reed is available. The matchup this week isn't too great and the Week 11 is his bye, but he should be inheriting the George Kittle role for the rest of the season. The Seahawks keep doing it. They keep giving up monster games to quarterbacks. Josh Allen made the Hawks' pass defense look as paper thin as one of Donald Trump's voter fraud claims. If Jared Goff can be half the quarterback of Josh Allen, you'll be very happy. The Houston Texans saw every fantasy analyst under the sun putting their defense top of their streaming advice. They said, hold my pass coverage, and proceeded to make 7th round rookie Jake Luton look like Russell Wilson. Whatever you believe about Baker Mayfield, you've got to believe he's better than Jake Luton. Just monitor the situation, as Baker is currently on the COVID list due to being a close contact, but he does have time to be cleared before this game, assuming he does test negative. He's back, and this time he's more mediocre than ever. If anyone took my heavily caveated advice last week and streamed Drew Lock, you were handsomely rewarded with a top 5 performance on the week. If you like living life on the edge, then there's no reason to jump off the Drew train just yet, as the Raiders have given up the 4th most points to fantasy quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. The Minnesota Vikings defense had a good game last week, picking off both Matthew Stafford and then Chase Daniel. This week they faced the Bears, fresh off giving Tennessee 14 points. Consider this a high floor, low ceiling play. Following Carl Allen's gruesome injury, the football team are back to starting Alex Smith. All these signal caller changes are a gift for fantasy defenses. The Lions are not a good defense, so this one carries the risk that anyone who played the Texans last week could attest to, but there are no slam dunks at defense this week. And if Matthew Stafford misses this game, you can stream the other side of the ball too. Chase Daniel is not a good quarterback, and the Washington pass rush is legit. Tyler Bass was one of the top scoring kickers last week, with 2 scores of 14 plus now in his last 3 games. Brandon McManus had a decent first game in a dome this season. He gets another again, this time in Vegas. Jason Myers has 27 points over his last 3 games, with only 1 of those coming in a dome. He travels to the Rams this week and should have a steady floor of kicking production.